You sit in a trench, it's dark, on the 15th September 1916, and you start hearing a sound in the distance. You don't know what it is, and through the thick fog suddenly appears a monster that you've never seen before. The Age of Tanks is here. Not as long ago, 7 years ago, there was an event in World of Tanks Blitz with this vehicle, the first ever battle-used tank in the world. Now the sad news is that you will never be able to play this vehicle. This is a press account and it has been added here for display purposes. If you go into a battle with it, it will result in nothing because this vehicle had a special matchmaking queue where it was only available to play against other Mark I heavy tanks only on the map of Fort Despair. So wait, you thought driving a tank was fun? Think again. This is the engine of the Mark I. It produced a total of 105 horsepower. That's about the same as a modern VW Golf. However, a VW Golf doesn't weigh a total of 28 tons, which kind of makes it a bit difficult to steer. And adding on top of that, the engine is also located right inside the crew compartment. So not only are you being gassed while driving, you also have to watch out because otherwise you will burn your ass on the odd engine parts. So while in the modern main battle tank that is equipped with the newest features like, for example, air conditioning, all you had in a World War I tank was
carbon monoxide. It's got the engine, the V12, it's situated at the back in a separate compartment away from the crew, so you're not actually gassing everyone while it's going along, which is rather nice.
Now, while the Mark I was the first tank, this vehicle, the Renault FT, was the inspiration for everything that followed. Now, in World of Tanks Blitz, you don't have to consume any toxic fumes, however, that would certainly explain the performance of quite a large amount of the player base. Now, furthermore, the Mark I isn't really realistic the way it is displayed in World of Tanks Blitz. It is set as a Tier 1 vehicle, however, if you look at the statistics of this vehicle, it is more positioned like a Tier 3 tank destroyer, given that its alpha damage and DPM is very similar to Tier 3 vehicles. On top of that, the accuracy is, well, obviously horrible, but still way too good for reality. I mean, the real-life accuracy of the Mark I was about, let's try to maybe not hit our own guys, and then we already won. So, something like that. Now, on top of that, the mobility of this vehicle is way too good because it has 300 horsepower. In reality, as we just established, it had 100. Now, while the crew was in there dying of heat and carbon monoxide, they had a mission to fulfill because there were two versions of this vehicle, a male version with a 6-pounder gun and a female version with a machine gun. Now, the Blitz version has that 57mm gun mounted right here in the front of the vehicle. However, the male versions of the vehicle had two of these guns mounted in the side sponsons of the vehicle. However, obviously for World of Tanks Blitz, it would have been pretty weird to not be able to shoot in the front of the vehicle. Now, what does look somewhat like a tank destroyer, given that it doesn't have a movable turret, it does have a special feature right here at the back, and that is these two extra wheels that were meant for steering. However, you could also steer the vehicle without it. Well, you could try to steer this vehicle because first of all, it was extremely slow, and second of all, it is quite long, and the longer a tank becomes, the harder it becomes to turn as well. So these wheels did help a little bit, but they didn't really do much. But what they do in Blitz is add comedic effect because they spin even when they're up in the air. And because this vehicle was built for trench warfare, one thing you have to do is fire it downwards into trenches, which means this vehicle had a staggering 15 degrees of gun depression, something that you don't really see a lot. Now, there was also a World of Tanks PC version of the Mark I event. Unfortunately, in that mode, you weren't able to drive the Mark I itself. You were limited to very fun little armored cars, and that was a great event too. These little armored cars were very prone to flipping and therefore very fun, and the way it worked is you either were on the attacking team or the defending team, and you had to either blow up the Mark I or guide the Mark I to its destination on the other side of the map. Now, unfortunately, I don't own a time machine, nor do I have the budget or knowledge to build one, which means it's impossible for me to go back to 2016 and play the vehicle as it was, so this will have to do as a backdrop. Now, I will be linking a video of Mark I gameplay down in the description. Check it out if you want to, it's the only one I've found. This thing, I mean, it's a lot smaller, it's a bit faster, same thing, doesn't matter. Just think this is a Mark 1. And the Mark 1 had 15 degrees of gun depression, this one doesn't. So, what do you do with the Mark 1? Obviously, it's simply just a funny add-on to press accounts at this moment, but if you do want the Mark 1 to be added to the game on a permanent basis, like the MS-1 was, put it down into the comments, because as of right now, there are absolutely no plans to have that happen at any time. But if you want it to happen, tell me in the comments. Now, with the MS-1, it was pretty straightforward. The MS-1 used to be the original Tier 1 Soviet vehicle. Then the Tier 1 got changed. Basically, Tier 2 became Tier 1s. The Tier 1s were removed. And then, a couple of years later, the MS-1 was reintroduced as a Tier 2 event vehicle. Now, something similar could theoretically happen with a Mark 1. It is already sort of positioned in a Tier 3 situation. You would have to tweak couple of characteristics to make it a fully available Tier 3, but all in all, it could sort of work. So that's not really the problem. Another problem, though, is its date. What is it? It's a tank from 1915 in a game where most of the Tier 1 vehicles are from the early or late 30s, which is quite a big difference in time. But then again, the difference between the first generation main battle tank M48 pattern was built in the early 50s, and the Type 74, also known as the STB-1, built in the 70s, is quite big. And the difference between the E50M and the STB is obviously greater. So that's not a problem. 20-year difference, who cares? So that's not an obstacle. The only real obstacle, though, I believe, is the player base, because a lot of the people now that play Blitz, they don't really know what tanks are, because that's kind of what happened with a game. The more popular a game becomes, the more casual the player base does get, and this by no way elitism or anything like that. I'm just saying that now a Blitz player is a lot less likely to know what a Mark 1 even is, or what the point of it is, so it might not be very popular. But as I said, do you want it? Put it in the comments. But all in all, it would be a nice thing to add. Like, Blitz is turning 10 years old next year. The 100-year anniversary of the Mark 1, which is why the event happened, was in 2016. And for the 10-year anniversary of World Tanks Blitz, you could introduce something like that again. As of now, there are no plans to introduce the Mark 1 into the game, but do you want it in Blitz, or do you want
carbon monoxide?
So with that said, thank you very much for watching, and see you for the next one. Goodbye.